So, what's the most frustrating thing about sheet metal work, at least for beginners? This might just be my personal opinion, but it usually happens halfway through your first piece of sheet metal, getting to cut off the car. You got your cut-off wheel halfway through, and you saw what you just did. You start getting thoughts. I probably could have lived with those little bit of pinholes. That cab corner didn't look that bad. Now look what I did. Now I got a big gaping hole in the side of my favorite ride, and I got to do something about it. I'm committed. Is it ever going to look as good? Hopefully even better than it did before? Maybe it's just me. That's kind of where I'm at with this right now, especially on this car. Got on the interwebs and spent a ton of money on patch panels for this thing. It's kind of coming down to the moment of truth. It's where we're at. Car runs and drives. Everything else is kind of kosher on it. We're down to sheet metal work. So that is today's video. Getting down to the nitty gritty and doing the dirty work that nobody wants to do. I want to do it, but I hope I can get it right. I'm not professional by any means doing this, and this isn't a 96 Escort, so a little bit nerve-wracking. Let's see what we can get done. Let's dig in. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, for the sake of my own nerves, let us baby step into this project here. And I'll show you what I mean. Got a new welder. I take that for what it's worth. I mean, I actually got a new welding machine, but I'm a new welder myself, so don't know much about that. I do know a little bit about myself. I've welded before, done some things, but definitely not a pro at it. So let's start with something simple. This would be a filler panel for the front. Sits right behind the front bumper and looks like it needs a pretty simplistic flat panel with a half-rolled lip in it here. I guess step one is we're gonna get this cleaned up, see what's going on underneath it before we start cutting stuff to size. I'm gonna get my welder set up then, and we'll give it a shot on this, see what comes of that before we tackle anything attached to the car. So the next thing to do here, I got the original piece all cleaned up. I wanted to make sure there was no other pitting work stuck in here anywhere. There's a tiny pinhole over here somewhere, so you can see the light through it. I'm not particularly concerned about that, nor am I concerned about that one right there. And I might have a trick up my sleeve to patch that up without making a panel. I got some spare sheet metal I had laying around, and I got a piece mostly cleaned up, at least cleaned up enough we can make a template for the replacement panel here. Benefit being on this, guys, this piece we're replacing here, it's not a shown piece on the car. This actually attaches to the front fender, and even if it's not the prettiest, it'll work. So let's get this traced out and get a rough guide as to what we need to cut out. So I made a mistake on that piece, guys. I actually went right up to where the flat would end, not taking into effect that I want to leave a little extra down here for this rolled lip. So that's when I moved it back and I retraced, and that should be plenty to bend that lip on there. And if there's extra, we can trim as we need. But that should work okay for that. Okay, so I think we're about ready to cut this piece out here. It's pretty close. I got my new piece marked. Seems to be a pretty good fit. Let's get this original piece cut out and start fitting the new one. All right, so got that piece cut up, made it up right there. I think it is best that we try to fold that lip before we weld this into place. Would it be possible to do afterwards? Yeah, but the way I got to do it, I think it'll be a lot easier to manage the flat piece of metal versus the whole piece. So I'm going to take care of that real quick. We've got our seams pretty close. Got my holes remarked at the bottom where the other ones were. I'm going to fold that lip over right there, refit the piece, and hopefully we'll be pretty close to welding this up. Hey guys, I went ahead and got that piece tacked in for now. Flipped it over, and it was moving around on me a little bit as expected. So I had to cut a few tacks, reflatten back out. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but I got it pretty darn flush in there now. So I'm going to turn the piece back over, get it clamped back down again a little bit, and continue running some tacks, a little at a time, cooling, a little at a time, cooling down, and try not to flex this piece too much. Well, and there it is. Finished piece. Got that lip cut pretty close. I'm not going to bother grinding the inside welds. They're not going to be seen anyways. In the midst of welding, cutting, grinding, whatever, I did lose one whole location, and I can't seem to find my scrap piece anywhere. So, probably going to have to wait to get it bolted up to the car and see where that one's at. But besides that, I'm pretty happy with the repair. I think it's definitely going to work for what it is. Little confidence builder there, because I'm going to need it. It was probably this point in time I decided to put the camera down and just get to work. It's a little difficult making videos about stuff you're not super confident about, and also trying to talk people through that. So right here I started doing patch panels on the side of the car. This is the first set I did, and these are also panels my dad had bought, and they fit a lot better than the ones I purchased. So here's half the fun of digging into these old cars and seeing what they're all about. After I got the outer shell off, I could see that the inner panel was gone as well, and I had twice, if not more, time in fabricating what you see here to get everything kosher before I could move on to attaching the outer panel. But, as you can see, I muscled through it, and it turned out alright. So right here we're doing a time lapse of this right rear quarter panel right underneath the taillight section. As you can see, there was just a little tiny spot that was rotted out, and the patch panel for the side of the car actually came with this section on it, but it didn't fit exactly right, so what I did was just separated that panel from the side and put this little patch panel in. And it didn't turn out perfect, and it didn't fit as well as what I thought it was going to. But it fit okay, and definitely looks a lot better than the hole that was there. I guess you could say that's half the fun of, if you will, doing this metal repair work here. One, you never know exactly what you're getting into until you get that cover panel off and see what's going on underneath. And then two, when you're tacking the new panel on, depending on your heat settings, your welder or whatnot, that panel's going to move around on you a little bit. And it's kind of one of those rolling with the punches and trying to do the best you can. Anyways, here's the final result. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for who it's for. So here you see the final result of the right rear quarter panel sections, and I was pretty content with how these fit on the car, how they tacked on, and I just left them tacked for now. I've kind of got a motive in mind of getting the hard part done, getting it tacked on, and move on. So, shortly after I was done with the passenger side of the car, I moved to the driver's side and started attacking that rear quarter section. As you can see here, I got my heat gun out and started removing the rubberized undercoating to see what all was going on. And this side of the car was in a lot better shape than the passenger side was. The intersection here, as you'll see after I get it all peeled away, only needs a couple patch panels put in. It doesn't need that entire panel on the side. But the big curveball on this piece was there's this inner dog leg section, which you guys will see here in a minute, that was totally rotted away, and I've only got a little shred of the original metal to go on to replicate something new. So that kind of what I was talking about before. You never know really what you're getting into until you peel open the box and curveball. So had a little added extra time over here as well, but I got to work on fabricating something, and I think it's going to work. In this clip here, you see me roughly fitting that outer panel that I purchased that fits nowhere near as good as the one my dad purchased, but that's a story for another day. So here's that inner dogleg section. This would be behind the rear tire, and it's a C-shaped structure, and you can just see the little shred of metal that I've got to go on to replicate something for it. So found some cardboard. It's been sitting in the corner collecting dust for a while. And as you'll see here, we're going to start mocking up some panels to attempt to put something together here. Something I've got real limited experience doing, but I'm getting better as I go. So the initial plan here, we have a C-shaped structure, 3 sides to it. If I take a piece of cardboard and try to replicate each of the 3 panels on a piece of cardboard, cut them, trace them onto a piece of metal, and weld them, tack them together, and kind of see what we come up with, and hope and pray that it's somewhat close to what was original on the car. So I actually had to extend a few of those pieces for a couple different reasons. One, I couldn't get the template as far up as I needed on the piece I was trying to replicate. That, and you always want to leave a little extra. A little extra material is a lot better than not having enough. So you can always go back and shave more off at the end, and that's 10 times easier than trying to add some. So right here I'm trying to extend a few of the pieces I had marked out before I traced them onto the metal, so I had a little extra to work with. So here we're getting to tracing the pieces onto the metal, and I had some learning here as well. I was trying to be conservative with the sheet metal I had and bunch all 3 of these pieces as close together, Tetris-wise as well, to make most use of the material and have the least amount of waste. And I really didn't take into effect the thickness of my cutoff wheel blade or anything like that. I guess long story short, what I'm trying to say here is leave yourself a little room and it'll make your life easier in the end. And, well, if you end up with a little more scrap, then that's just what it is. So after I got all three pieces roughly cut out, I turned my bench grinder on and brought them a little closer to the shapes I was looking for. So now it would be time to tack weld this science experiment together and then put it up to the car and hope and pray I got it somewhat close to what we were going for. So as you can see, it ended up coming out pretty close to what we were going for. Now it's time to open up everything else and get it more closely fit and set into place. So I think we're going to call it a wrap on that one, guys. This is some time-consuming work, and it's taken a long time to do the work, let alone get it all put together in video format and sent out to you guys. Hence the big gaps in my video production, put out, whatever you want to call it. But I'm trying here. This will be part one of part at least two of getting the sheet metal work done on this car. More content's coming, I promise. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you're not already. I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Like his favorite channel. Bye bye.